The world is watching because trade is going to stay at the top of the agenda for the president's meeting with Xi Jinping. But the Chinese leader will likely press Trump on another goal.
I don't know that we'll even speak about Taiwan. I'm not sure. I mean, he may want to ask about it. There's not that much to ask about it. You know, Taiwan is Taiwan.
Trump, who rated the meeting a 12 out of 10, offered few specifics, but emphasized that the two leaders made progress on several key issues. He says China will pause restrictions on rare earth exports and buy large amounts of American soybeans, while the U.S. will reduce fentanyl-related tariffs placed on Chinese goods. That's going to bring the overall levy on Chinese goods to 47%, coming down from 57%.
The world wasn't ready for what happened in South Korea this week. Cameras flashed, reporters rushed, and yet, behind the scenes, something far more seismic was unfolding. Donald Trump had just finished one of the most dramatic meetings of his post-presidency era, a direct, closed-door conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The outcome? A stunning agreement that no one, not even the sharpest analysts, saw coming. China, for the first time in years, agreed to reopen the gates on rare earth exports after months of tense standoffs, sanctions, and nuclear posturing. But the twist? It only happened after Trump issued a chilling nuclear warning to both Beijing and Moscow. In the age of fragile diplomacy and calculated words, Trump once again did what no other leader dared. He raised the stakes. Before the meeting even began, he posted a fiery message announcing the United States' intention to resume nuclear testing, citing that if others are doing it, we must do it too.
I don't know that we'll even speak about Taiwan. I'm not sure. I mean, he may want to ask about it. There's not that much to ask about it. You know, Taiwan is Taiwan. We're bringing a lot of the Taiwan business back to the United States. I think within 2 years, I think we'll have 40 to 50% of the chip market. But that's happening, and I don't know, it's happening because of the tariffs. It's also happening because of the fact maybe they're a little bit concerned about things.
That statement alone sent shockwaves across the global defense community. For many, it was classic Trump, unpredictable, direct, and impossible to ignore. But for China, it was more than a message. It was a warning that the era of quiet diplomacy was over. Trump's arrival in Seoul wasn't just another stop in his Asia tour. It was the center stage for a geopolitical showdown that could redefine the global balance of power. The stakes were immense. China had been tightening control over rare earth minerals, the critical materials used in everything from electric vehicles and semiconductors to missile guidance systems. For years, Beijing used its dominance in this sector as leverage against the West, and especially against the U.S. Washington had accused China of weaponizing trade. Beijing accused Washington of hypocrisy. The cycle went on. But this time, it ended differently. When Trump met Xi behind closed doors, sources described the room as intense but strangely respectful. Both leaders had come prepared, Trump with his economic pressure points, Xi with his global strategy cards. Yet, as the talks progressed, it became clear that Trump's message wasn't about confrontation. It was about rebalancing power. He demanded that China lift restrictions on rare earth exports to American companies, not as a favor, but as a step toward fair competition. And Xi, surprisingly, agreed. For the world watching, this was a moment that defied the usual script of U.S.-China tension. Trump announced moments later, "The roadblock is gone. No more barriers on rare earths." His tone was confident, even triumphant. He emphasized that this deal wasn't just for the United States, but for the world. That was a clear signal to allies in Japan, South Korea, and Europe that Washington was taking the lead again in the global supply chain race. Analysts immediately began asking how such a breakthrough could have happened. The truth is, this wasn't about charm or coincidence. It was about leverage, economic, military, and symbolic. Trump understood something few were willing to admit. In the current geopolitical order, strength speaks louder than diplomacy. His nuclear announcement, controversial as it was, forced Beijing to reconsider its next move. The message was unmistakable: if China wanted stability, it had to play ball. But that wasn't the only revelation from the meeting. Trump also announced a reduction in tariffs on Chinese goods from 20% to 10%. citing Xi's commitment to combat the flow of fentanyl into the United States. This gesture, part symbolic, part strategic, was designed to give China a reason to comply while projecting American dominance. Trump's calculation was simple. Give them something small, get something big. Back in Washington, the reaction was electric. Supporters hailed the move as proof that Trump still holds sway over global politics, even outside the White House. Critics, meanwhile, warned that mixing nuclear posturing with trade policy was a dangerous precedent. But one thing everyone agreed on: Trump had once again changed the conversation. The implications of the rare earth deal are massive. For years, China controlled more than 80% of the global supply chain for these minerals. Every iPhone, every Tesla, every missile system in some way relied on materials sourced or refined in China. The deal with Trump means the US and its allies can now access these materials more freely, reducing global dependence on Beijing. That's not just an economic win, it's a geopolitical shift. Behind the scenes, advisors on both sides worked overtime to ensure the language of the deal avoided any appearance of weakness. Xi's government portrayed it as a mutual cooperation agreement, while Trump framed it as a victory for global trade freedom. But make no mistake, this was Trump's win. The rare earth agreement effectively neutralized one of China's strongest trade weapons. It's a move that could reshape not only markets, but the strategic balance between the world's two largest powers. Of course, not everyone in Beijing is celebrating. Within hours of the announcement, Chinese state media began downplaying the agreement, suggesting that implementation would depend on reciprocal actions. That's diplomatic language for "we'll see." But the fact that Xi even agreed to it in principle shows how much pressure China is under economically, politically, and internationally. China's economy is slowing, its property market is struggling, and its exports are declining. Meanwhile, the US continues to strengthen ties across Asia. South Korea, Japan, and even parts of Southeast Asia are aligning closer with Washington. And this deal only reinforces that momentum. It's not just about rare earths. It's about control of the future. For Trump, this moment was also deeply personal. It was a chance to remind the world that his influence extends far beyond domestic politics. He's not just a former president, he's still a force that can shake the global stage. His meeting with Xi wasn't about nostalgia or symbolism. It was about proving that American strength, when asserted, can still yield real results. What's particularly striking is how this event reframed global perception of US-China relations. For months, tensions had been rising over Taiwan, trade disputes, and military buildups in the South China Sea. Many expected this meeting to escalate those tensions. Instead, it cooled them, at least temporarily. Trump called the meeting a 12 out of 10, signaling that he saw it as not just productive, but historic. But the underlying question remains: how long will this calm last? Because while the world saw smiles and handshakes, the rivalry between Washington and Beijing is far from over. Rare earths might be off the table for now, but new battlegrounds are emerging: AI technology, chip manufacturing, and military influence in the Pacific. The next confrontation won't be about minerals. It'll be about dominance in the technologies of the future. Still, for the global markets, this announcement was a relief. Stock indexes across Asia and the US responded positively. Defense contractors and tech manufacturers saw immediate upticks, anticipating a more stable flow of key resources. For once, business and politics seemed aligned, both driven by the promise of stability. The conversation about Trump's nuclear announcement, however, continues to dominate headlines. Critics argue it was reckless to bring up nuclear testing at such a sensitive time. But others believe it was precisely that move that forced China to compromise. After all, Beijing is acutely aware of how much a nuclear escalation could destabilize its own economic ambitions. Trump may have used fear, but he used it effectively. Xi's calculated response, acknowledging disagreements but emphasizing mutual respect, shows that China understood the moment. Beijing knows it can't afford a full-scale confrontation with Washington, not when its domestic economy is so fragile. So it took the deal, eased the tension, and bought itself time. And that's where things stand tonight, a moment that could redefine global power itself. As Trump returns to Washington, one thing is clear: the balance of influence in Asia is shifting fast, and America's dominance is no longer guaranteed. The world is watching, and the next move could change everything.